Well, hello and welcome to A View from the Top. I'm Adrian Cropley. A View from the Top is a regular podcast from the Centre for Strategic Communication Excellence, where I get to interview some of the world's leading communication professionals as we explore their career journey. And today I'm really fortunate to have Mary Hills in town here in Melbourne, enjoying the sunshine and the warm weather, I hope. Mary Hills is a fellow for FRSA and also an IABC fellow, Six Sigma professional and ABC. She's the business principal for business marketing and communication consulting for companies seeking innovative product development and or local global market development coupled with forecasting market performance. And that's quite a mouthful. She's also an adjunct faculty for Loyola University in Chicago, teaching in Masters of Global Strategic Communication. She also works with Keller Graduate School of Management, teaching part of their MBA program. I'm proud to have Mary also working with the faculty here with the Centre for Strategic Communication Excellence, and also have her business, HeimannHills, as a partner for the Centre, who's currently doing some research with us. Welcome to Melbourne, Mary. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. I love the weather after leaving Chicago. Windy and cold, so I'm hoping I can bring some of this warmth back there.
So it's not a myth that Chicago's the windy city?
It is a windy city, and it really is get cold in the winter. So this is a nice break.
Well, welcome to the warm weather. Mary, it was great just to catch up with you and have a bit of a chat about your career. And how did your career start? And I'm going not too way back, but a little ways back to when you were in school, university. What is it that you studied? What got you into communication in the first place? Or was it kind of that left of field, don't know what I might do when I grow up kind of thing?
Well, it was not left of field, I guess, to a certain degree. I actually, had identified quite early, probably in middle school and even high school, that I had an interest in law. And to kind of build on the back of that was this interest in business management. So after I got all of my science and math requirements in high school, I was able to take electives in business management and business law. And of course, because we went so far back in time, this would have been a time that, there were not necessarily a lot of females in those courses. So I had some early training in how to be, participating and engaging in a field that quite traditionally was male. Yeah. So as I went into higher ed and I did my undergraduate at Marquette in Milwaukee, I did go into business and came out in marketing and finance there. And neither one of those really should have tied in together at that time, because in finance, where that was the first field that I started my career in, finance was highly regulated at that time, so you really didn't need marketing. But it had turned out that in order to kind of get out of school in 4 years, you had to take a certain number of credits. And so I landed up kind of taking a couple marketing courses and said, well, holy smokes, I could get both of these. So why not do it? And so I literally came out in marketing, which was probably at that time a bit of a more emphasis on advertising.
Right. Yeah.
And then also came out in finance, and the area of finance where I tended to kind of specialize was in investment research and analysis. And so went into my first job, which I competed as an undergraduate for a program in finance training at a large national bank in the United States. And there were about 400 candidates for that, and 20 were selected. 2 out of the 20 were selected on undergraduate. Mm-hmm. And so it was a gentleman who had gone to University of Wisconsin, Ripon. And it was funny because he came out of undergrad in a political science. And here I came out of undergrad with, a background in the marketing and finance. And he was given $1,000 more in salary outrageous, yes. So it was really indicative of the times at that time. So, but I did come out, and that was a strong program. It was a leadership program and executive program, and I spent a lot of time with the leadership of the bank. It was the 34th largest bank in the United States at that time, so we had a lot of exposure. We had a lot of people that came in and talked about what was going on in the world. So that whole outlook, that whole outreach, whether it be on the economic side or the social side of what was going on, we talked about that over coffee in the morning with people.
So you think some of that business background that you had within your studies and the finance then started to come into play in your early positions quite quickly, by the sounds of it?
It actually did. And I think it was also, it contributed greatly to developing the poise and ability to articulate when you're talking to executive and senior managers.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing this over a cup of coffee and you're putting a poppy seed donut in your mouth because you're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you become comfortable with the exchange and the discussion. Yeah. And so that was very beneficial. And then it was just I was coming out of undergrad, and so most of the other trainees, had come out of an MBA program and some top programs in the country. And so I was able to not only get the field of finance, but I was able to get that MBA graduate and the way that their kind of brain had developed and worked. So all around it was good, but what I found was challenging for me was I was ready to get to work. Yeah. And I was in one more training program. and so I felt like I'd been training. I'd been through K through 12. I went to high school. I went to undergrad. And now I'm in a training program. When am I going to finally get to work? And so I landed up, I did leave the bank. And then about that time, my husband and I were engaged. And so we were moving down into the Chicago area, and that's when I moved in and took a job at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Right. And that was my first experience, I think, in a change initiative. Yeah. At that time, the financial industry was undergoing deregulation. Right. And so we had to develop communication programs. And here, of course, I come out of marketing and finance. What do I know about communication? So we were developing communication programs because under the new law, you would have not only banks reporting on their finances, you now were going to have credit unions and S&Ls. And those cultures were very different between the bankers who came in their three-piece suits and the S&Ls and credit unions who came in, like with a shirt that had their company's logo on it. And so just the cultural nuances that you observed and how to make sure everybody got along in the sandbox and we could have a discussion and an exchange. So that, I think, was a little bit of a baptism by fire on the comm side, but enjoyed it. And again, being in the Federal Reserve, you're connected with economics, you're connected with the global stage. Yeah. So you become real adept at that.
Yeah. And did you find a big difference from making the transition between what would have been pure marketing into communications? And then, of course, I know years ago when you and I first started talking, you worked very much in the marcoms area. And that I think that was almost the catalyst back then to start talking about things as marcoms, because that separation of marketing and communication started coming together a lot more. But you were kind of there before that was starting to happen.
Because of baptism by fire. Yeah. You're kind of like, making the dance up as you're dancing. Which I think is a little better saying than building the plane while you're flying. The dance I can take a little bit better. But that was exactly it. A lot of things were already changing. And so the ways that had been used needed to evolve. And so we were able to do that. I think that as I came out and looked and I would never dismiss the training and background of marketing and finance that I had, because I think, frankly, it taught me how to think about things and to accept things. But I think what I saw is I worked on, whether I did just a bang-up job on a financial analysis or a fabulous strategic outlook in marketing, when I turned it over to somebody to tell the story, they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I said, geez, Louise, none of this stuff goes anywhere if we don't communicate it to the people that have to hear about it. And so by this time, we were starting our family, and of course my husband was working on his first master's. And so I did take a brief hiatus from the market. And with the understanding, because I was in a non-traditional female field, that I would take a hit in my career before that. And so one of the ways that I minimized that hit when re-entering the market was when I went back and got my master's in Org-Com and Structure out of Purdue University in Indiana. And that allowed me to enter the market again and really come in at a good point instead of, I just was absent from the market for a while.
Do you think there was big changes that had happened even in that short hiatus time where, you've stopped, you've had a family, and then you've re-entered? Obviously you did that line of study. But did you know what was the biggest difference that you noticed, and what were some of those jobs that you did post that time?
Oh, I think some of the things, and I kept my toe in doing things on the not-for-profit side. When I say I take a hiatus from my career, I did work on a conference out of Purdue University that was called Expanding Career Horizons. And that conference, we were really focused on getting young girls 12, 13, and 14-year-old, into STEM-related fields. So science, technology, engineering, and math. And that was a good fit for me, and I understood it. And so that also brings you in contact with a lot of people who have such a forward vision. Yeah. You're talking about putting girls in STEM. Good Lord, what are you thinking? And so that was very good. But that keeping my toe in it kept the sanity, I think, for when you're just kind of, taking care of 3 kids. Right? But that was, I think, instrumental. And then re-entering, I landed up going more into, at that time, you didn't call it Marcom. No one would have known what Marcom was. But it was kind of housed under marketing. Now, one of the things that I also found was that if you said that you had come out in comms, people would go, oh, comms. But if I said...
Was that the look down the nose?
That was the look. And then, you really saw it in the salary. There was but if you said you were coming out and you were going for a marketing job, there's probably about, in the U.S., a $10,000 difference in salary.
And that's huge.
And so, I said, well, you know what, I'm just going to say marketing. But I'll understand that I have to do some comms because of it. And so, but we were really seeing such growth in both marketing and comms at that time, that they were disciplines coming into themselves. Marketing wasn't going to be just about advertising. All of a sudden, the entire strategic element was being introduced. Research, which I landed up using my background in financial research and investment analysis, that then fed the research things that had to be done. And so it all started coming together, even though I would love to tell you how planned it was, but it was really staying alive at any given moment and grabbing the opportunities that kind of came along.
That's brilliant. When I think about it, and your organization, HeimannHills, when you formed up your partnership, started focusing a lot on research once you started that organization. What drove you towards actually that focus in research and I guess business insight as well with organizations that you work with? What made you transition into your own world? Into
that wonderful area of context. And I think that coming out of financial analysis, and especially the investment side, which we tend to think that is quantitative analysis, and that it's all about ratios and things like that. And there are a lot of ratios, probably more than we need. But the reality is, after we do all of that analysis on a stock or whatever it might be, we then look at who the leader of the company is.
Right.
We look at what are they thinking about 5 years down the line. Well, that's very qualitative. And so you have that kind of intersection that has to occur. And that was when I started saying, I need this context. I need to understand historically, what has this company said it was, and where does it want to go? Well, now we call that vision mission, right? And we say there are goals and objectives, and then we have our values, right, and all of those things. But at that point, we were just seeing that under development, and it was actually coming out of the business schools, were the primary leaders in that. And so that was kind of, why can't we just take what they're doing in the business school and move it over on the comp side? And then we did have some outstanding leadership in IABC that kind of made that really hit the ground running. But it really was watching what was going on and taking, we borrowed from sociology, political science. The field of comms is a melting pot, right? So everybody should belong, because there's a role for everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. As I'm hearing you talk there, and you talk about your role in IABC as well, and that's an area we haven't touched on yet, but you've got a whole bunch of experience, you've set up your own business, you're working with organizations, you're talking about the business. But you also have had a great influence in the profession as a whole. And I think about, and it's one of the reasons that I certainly call you a leader in our profession is because you have had that influence. You've the value study that you did many years ago was a great exercise in understanding the value of things like certification and also the global standard. That was a project that you and I worked on only 6 years ago. And it's really helped change the profession through IABC and the work that you did. What were some of the big, I think, lessons in doing those types of initiatives in increasing the value for communication professionals?
Well, in particular, I think with the value of accreditation, it was a solid program. And yet, at that time, there were people who would look at the experience they had and say, well, you know what, for instance, if they said that they and I was on a panel at Boeing one time on this. And, of course, I teach out of an MBA program part-time at night. But there were other communicators. And one of the questions that came up and said, well, you got an MBA. How did you make more money? How did that impact your role? And a couple of other people on the panel said, I don't know that the MBA was that important or crucial. And one in particular said, I probably wouldn't go back and do it, and I kind of sat there and they were on either side of me and we were on these chairs where your legs and feet don't hit the ground, so you're just kind of hanging on this chair. And I remember, finally the facilitator, who was Connie Mays in Chicago, and she looked and she said, well, Mary, what would you say about that? And, I said, I never have looked and discounted any opportunity or experience I've had. Yeah. It all fits in somewhere. Yeah. So I said, I think that one of the keys is don't look back and sit there and say, I shouldn't have. Yeah. It's all there already. It's done. So, it really isn't about the money. It really is about getting it done. It's about can I contribute and can I advance? Yeah. And if I cannot, then I need to step away from the plate and let the next batter come up. But I think so often we're looking for the magic bullet. Yeah. There is no magic bullet. It's hard work, but if you can have fun doing it, and we had a lot of fun on Career Roadmap. There were a lot of hot topics, followed by a cocktail hour, but we really listened to what people were saying, and that whole idea of listening to what someone's saying, putting yourself in their shoes so you could understand what you might be missing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key things that we have to see now is, we always call in the U.S., we always say we have to reach across the aisle.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the key things that as compros, I think that we're going to always be expected to do now.
And this is the type of work that really has helped set our professional standards for the future. This is work that's been used in the global certification, developing things like the IABC Academy. It's worked well for us within the Center for Strategic Communication Excellence to look at what are the training, the courses, the insights that we need to provide. So I think it's really evolutionary stuff that was worked on, but very leading edge even back then. And now we're hearing more talk around we should have one certification for the profession and all of those, which are kind of pipe dream stuff. But, we've moved a long way back when we didn't even know what comms was to now we're saying it is gaining its place as a valuable discipline function for organizations. So I give you an opportunity now as somebody who is leading in our profession to give some advice to up-and-coming communication professionals. What's some of the things they should be doing to help position them as that valuable contributor to their organizations?
Well, I think we have quite a few forces at play. And I think that I like the word evolution, and I tend to, even in change, going into companies and kind of managing change for them, it's not change, it's evolution. And, human beings, our whole life is evolution. We grow old, right? That's not a bad thing. That's evolution. So I think if you can keep in your mind, that it's a natural progression, and how do you contribute and advance to anything along the way? In terms of communication professionals, I think that they've really got to focus on the strategic.
Yeah.
We know as we're working on that wonderful 2019 Communicating AI survey and the development of the Communicating AI playbook, we see that, some of those tactical things, we're going to have them done by software, and machines are going to learn, they're still going to need us, right, to do the thinking part and the feeling part. And that's a good thing because we'll be able to connect the dots. And so I think anything you can do on that front to understand that evolution of things, whether it be in AI, machine learning, the field. But I think overall, I think the one thing that compros are the things that come natural to us. And those are the things that we listen and we hear stories and we can articulate those stories to such a greater degree than a lot of professionals. And to make sure that we articulate them in words that can be understood and really are meaningful. And I think that means that we have to integrate. Yeah. We are the ones, companies that I was with, I would leave and people would say, oh, so-and-so in that company. I go, yeah, I worked on this, I worked on that. And they were like, how do you know all those people? Because I integrated.
Yeah.
I walked down the aisles and I crossed the aisles to the groups that, the engineers and the technicians who really needed comms. And they said, so draw me a schematic.
Yeah.
Talk to me in your language, and I'll figure it out. I may be a little slow on the draw, but I'll get there. And I think that's the crossing the aisle. That's the integration. Yeah. And I think it's respect for what the other functions and professions bring. So I think a lot of that is, I don't think it's rocket science that I would provide that guidance. I think it's just really easy to understand that those are the skills we are so fabulous at doing. and then articulating what all of those stories and messages are.
Yeah, that's the really wise words, Mary. I think back to times when I worked in organisations. I remember Ericsson, 2,000 employees, and I think I knew just about everyone. Names.
That's right.
And as you're talking there, I go, oh my gosh, that so resonates because, when you're in that position of connecting the dots for them and helping them gain voice for their story, I think it's just such an important role. Well, what an amazing journey you've been on, Mary, and
at such a young age.
At such a young age.
A young age.
What are you going to do for the next 40 years, Mary, is what I want to know. Look, I thank you so much for taking your time out while you're in Melbourne. I know you're in Melbourne on holiday and also doing some business with the centre, but you're also going to get to speak with the IABC folk this week and
yes,
a bit of a luncheon.
I am so
AI.
looking forward to that. Yes, we're doing a round table and on AI.
It's great.
So that'll be good.
Yeah,
that'll be good.
It'll be fun. So thanks so much, Mary, for taking the time out today and speaking with me. And thanks, everybody, for joining us for A View from the Top. Look forward to seeing you all next time. If you need any resources, help, please check out the website, and you should be able to download the AI results very soon on our website. So thank you for everybody joining us, and thank you again, Mary, and talk to you next time.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Take care.